What happens when two of television's most beloved personalities turn a light-hearted interview into the most explosive moment in late-night history? The Tonight Show stage, usually filled with laughter and applause, became ground zero for a confrontation that would end a legendary career and leave millions of viewers stunned. This isn't about a publicity stunt or a scripted bit gone wrong. This is about what really happened when Kelly Clarkson sat down across from Jimmy Fallon, and a simple question sparked a chain reaction nobody saw coming. Before we dive into the details of this shocking moment, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a comment below telling me which late-night host you think handled controversy the best. Now, let's get into exactly what went down. The studio audience was electric that evening, packed with fans who'd waited months for tickets. Kelly Clarkson walked onto the Tonight Show set with her signature warmth, waving to the crowd as they erupted in cheers. She'd been on the show dozens of times before, and her chemistry with Jimmy had always been effortless. They hugged, she took her seat, and Jimmy launched into his usual banter. "Kelly Clarkson, everybody," Jimmy said, gesturing to the audience for more applause. "You look amazing. How are you? What's going on?" "I'm good. I'm great, actually," Kelly responded, settling into the guest chair. "Busy as always, but I can't complain." "Busy is an understatement," Jimmy said, leaning forward. "You've got your talk show. You're still making music. You're everywhere. How do you do it all?" Kelly laughed. "Coffee. Lots of coffee. And a really good team around me." The conversation flowed easily through the usual topics. They discussed her latest album, her kids, funny moments from her own talk show. The audience was eating it up, laughing at all the right moments. Everything seemed perfectly normal. Exactly what viewers had come to expect from both of them. But then Jimmy shifted gears. "So, I want to ask you about something," Jimmy said, his tone changing slightly. "There's been a lot of talk lately about daytime versus late night. You know, the whole landscape of talk shows. Your show has been doing incredibly well." "Thank you," Kelly said, smiling, but looking slightly confused about where this was going. "No, I mean really well," Jimmy continued. "And I've been reading some articles, some comparisons being made. Do you pay attention to that stuff? The ratings, the competition aspect of it all?" Kelly shifted in her seat. "I try not to, honestly. I just focus on doing the best show I can and connecting with my audience." Right, Jimmy nodded. "But you must see it sometimes. The headlines. Kelly Clarkson's show beats out this person, beats out that person." The audience started to sense something was off. The energy in the room changed subtly. Kelly's smile became more fixed. "I guess I see it occasionally," she said carefully. "But I don't think of it as beating anyone. There's room for all of us." "Sure, of course," Jimmy said, but there was an edge to his voice now. "But let's be real for a second. Your show is in the daytime slot. Different audience, different format. It's not really the same thing as late night, is it?" Kelly blinked. "I'm sorry. What do you mean?" "I just mean," Jimmy said, spreading his hands. "Late night has a tradition, a legacy. Carson, Letterman, Leno. It's a different beast. Daytime talk is more, casual, lighter." The audience went quiet. You could hear people shifting in their seats. Kelly sat up straighter. "Lighter," she repeated. "Yeah, like you do the feel-good stories, the cooking segments, the makeovers," Jimmy explained. "Which is great. People love that. But late night is about the interviews, the political commentary, the edge. It's a different skill set." Kelly's expression hardened. "Jimmy, are you seriously suggesting that what I do is somehow less than what you do?" No, I'm not saying less," Jimmy backtracked, but he kept going. "I'm saying different. You found your lane, and that's awesome." "My lane," Kelly said slowly. "Okay, so your lane is the important one, and my lane is what? The fluffy one." "That's not what I said." "It's exactly what you said," Kelly shot back. "You just called my show casual and light, implying that yours is serious and substantial." Jimmy laughed nervously, looking to the audience for support, but they were silent. "Kelly, come on. Don't twist my words. I'm complimenting your success." "That wasn't a compliment," Kelly said firmly. "That was you trying to diminish what I've built. And honestly, I'm shocked. I thought we were friends." "We are friends," Jimmy insisted. "This is just a conversation." "No, this is you feeling threatened," Kelly said. And the audience gasped. "My show is succeeding. And instead of being happy for me, you're trying to put me in a box. The daytime box. The safe box. The less important box." Jimmy's face flushed. "I am not threatened by you, Kelly." "Then why are we having this conversation?" Kelly asked. "Why did you feel the need to make that distinction?" Late night versus daytime. Your tradition and legacy versus my casual little show. Because it matters, Jimmy said, his voice rising. Late night has always been where the real conversation happens, where culture gets shaped. Your show is great for what it is, but let's not pretend it's the same thing. The audience was fully engaged now. Some people murmuring, others leaning forward. Kelly stared at Jimmy for a long moment. For what it is, she repeated. You know what, Jimmy? Let me tell you what my show is. It's me getting up every single day and working my ass off to create something meaningful. It's me interviewing everyone from musicians to politicians to everyday people with incredible stories. It's me being vulnerable and real and honest with my audience. And yes, sometimes we cook. Sometimes we do makeovers. Sometimes we cry together because that's life. That's connection. That's what people actually want. I'm not saying you don't work hard, Jimmy said. Yes, you are, Kelly interrupted. You're saying that your work is more important because you do it at 11:30 at night instead of 2 o'clock in the afternoon. You're saying that your format is superior because it has some imaginary legacy attached to it. But here's what you're missing. That legacy, it's changing. People don't care about the time slot anymore. They care about authenticity. They care about hosts who don't talk down. To them or to their guests. Jimmy's jaw clenched. I have never talked down to anyone. You're doing it right now, Kelly said. To me on your show in front of all these people. Kelly, I think you're overreacting and I think you're deflecting. Kelly fired back. You started this conversation. You brought up the comparisons, the competition. Why? What were you hoping to accomplish? Jimmy hesitated. And in that hesitation, something shifted. The confidence he'd started with was crumbling. I was just making conversation, he said weakly. No, you were trying to establish a hierarchy, Kelly said, with you at the top. And maybe that worked in the past. Maybe that's how this world operated. But not anymore. Not with me. The tension was suffocating. The Roots, Jimmy's house band, sat frozen. The cameras kept rolling. And the audience watched as one of late night's biggest stars found himself cornered by a guest who refused to play along. I don't know what you want me to say, Jimmy finally said. I want you to acknowledge what you did, Kelly responded. I want you to admit that you disrespected me and my work. Kelly. Say it, Jimmy. The standoff continued, neither willing to back down as the audience held its collective breath. What started as a routine interview had transformed into something unprecedented, and everyone in that studio knew they were witnessing something that would reverberate far beyond that night. The question wasn't whether this would blow up. It was how big the explosion would be. Jimmy looked out at the audience, then back at Kelly. His expression caught somewhere between anger and panic. The silence stretched on for what felt like an eternity. Finally, he spoke. Fine, Jimmy said, his voice tight. Maybe I could have phrased things differently. Is that what you want to hear? That's not an apology, Kelly said flatly. That's you trying to end this conversation without actually taking responsibility. What do you want from me, Kelly? Jimmy asked, frustration bleeding through. You want me to grovel on my own show? I want you to be honest, Kelly said. With me, with yourself, with all these people watching. Do you think what I do is less valuable than what you do? Yes or no? Jimmy opened his mouth, closed it, then opened it again. I think we do different things. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have. Kelly shook her head slowly. You know what the saddest part of this is? I used to admire you. I used to think you were one of the good ones. Someone who lifted people up instead of tearing them down. But this is just insecurity dressed up as banter. Insecurity, Jimmy repeated, his voice hardening. You think I'm insecure? I've been doing this for over a decade. I've interviewed presidents, movie stars, musicians. I've built this show into something special. So no, Kelly, I'm not insecure. I'm just calling it like I see it. And how do you see it? Kelly challenged. I see someone who got lucky with a daytime slot and is now acting like they revolutionized television, Jimmy said, and the audience gasped again. You've been doing your show for what, a few years? And you're already acting like you're some kind of authority on what talk shows should be. Kelly's eyes flashed. Lucky? You think I got lucky? I think you were in the right place at the right time, Jimmy said. I think daytime was looking for someone fresh, and you fit the bill. But don't confuse timing with talent. The words hung in the air like a bomb. Even the cameraman looked stunned. Kelly stood up from her chair. Okay, she said quietly. Okay, now we're getting to the truth. Kelly, sit down, Jimmy said, but his voice wavered. No, Kelly said firmly. I'm not going to sit here and let you rewrite my story. You want to talk about luck? Let's talk about it. I won American Idol when I was 20. I built a career from nothing. I've sold millions of albums, won multiple Grammys, and yes, I got my own talk show. Not because of luck, Jimmy. Because I worked for it. Because I earned it. Because when they offered it to me, I was ready. I didn't mean it like that, Jimmy said. But he was losing ground. Yes, you did, Kelly said. You meant exactly that. And you know what? I get it. Your ratings have been slipping. The industry is changing. Younger hosts are coming up. Streaming is eating away at traditional television. And my show is doing well. Really well. And that scares you. Because if someone like me can succeed, if daytime can compete with late night, then what does that say about the precious legacy you keep talking about? My ratings are fine, Jimmy said defensively. Are they? Kelly asked. Because from what I've read, they've been declining for months, and my show keeps growing. And maybe that's what this is really about. Not daytime versus late night. Not tradition versus innovation. Just you versus me. And you can't handle that I'm winning. This isn't a competition, Jimmy snapped. You made it one, Kelly shot back. The second you started talking about lanes and formats and what really matters, you drew the line. I'm just standing on my side of it. Jimmy stood up now, too, facing her across the desk. You don't know what it's like to carry a show like this. The pressure. The expectations. Every single night. I have to be on. I have to make people laugh. Make them forget their problems. That's the job. And it's exhausting. So excuse me if I take pride in what I do and the tradition I'm a part of. I do know what it's like, Kelly said. I do it every single day. And I don't use tradition as an excuse to look down on other people. I don't need to diminish someone else's work to feel good about my own. That's the difference between us, Jimmy. I lift people up. You just lifted yourself up by pushing me down. That's not fair, Jimmy protested. Neither is what you said to me, Kelly countered. Casual. Light. For what it is. Those were your words. Own them. Jimmy ran his hand through his hair, clearly rattled. The audience was completely silent now, transfixed by the confrontation. This was no longer just an argument. It was a reckoning. Look, Jimmy said, trying to regain control. I think we both need to take a breath here. This got out of hand. No, this got real, Kelly said. Maybe for the first time on this show. No games, no bits, no fake laughing at jokes that aren't funny. Just two people being honest with each other. Fake laughing, Jimmy repeated, his face re-eaning. Is that what you think I do? I think you do whatever it takes to avoid conflict, Kelly said. I think you've built your entire brand on being likable and non-threatening and safe. And that works until it doesn't. Until someone calls you out. Until you have to actually defend your position instead of just smiling and nodding. You don't know anything about me, Jimmy said, his voice rising. I know what I see, Kelly responded. I see someone who started this conversation trying to put me in my place. And now that I'm fighting back, you can't handle it. You want me to back down, to laugh it off, to make this easy for you. But I'm not going to do that because this matters. What you said matters. How you see me and my work matters. Why? Jimmy asked. Why does my opinion matter so much to you? Because you have a platform, Kelly said. Because millions of people watch this show. Because when you diminish what I do, you're not just talking about me. You're talking about every woman in this industry who's been told her work isn't serious enough, isn't important enough, isn't real enough. You're perpetuating the same old garbage that keeps people in boxes. Now you're making this about gender, Jimmy said incredulously. I'm making this about respect, Kelly said. Something you clearly don't have for me. Jimmy shook his head. This is insane. I invited you on my show. I was trying to have a nice conversation. You were trying to assert dominance, Kelly corrected. And I'm not interested in playing that game. So, either we can have a real conversation as equals, or I can walk off this stage right now. Your choice. The audience was on the edge of their seats. Some people were filming on their phones, even though it was against the rules. The producers in the booth were probably losing their minds. But none of that mattered in this moment. It was just Jimmy and Kelly, locked in a battle neither had expected. You're really going to walk out? Jimmy asked. If I have to, Kelly said. I've walked away from bigger things than this. Like what? Jimmy challenged. Like people who don't value me, Kelly said simply. Like situations where I'm not respected, like conversations that are designed to make me feel small. I don't need this, Jimmy. I don't need your show or your approval. I came here as a courtesy, as a friend. But if you're going to treat me like this, then I'm done. Jimmy stared at her, and for the first time, something in his expression cracked. Not anger, but something deeper, something vulnerable. I'm not trying to make you feel small, he said quietly. Then what are you trying to do? Kelly asked, her voice softening slightly. Jimmy looked down at his desk, at his note cards, at anything but her. I don't know, he admitted. I honestly don't know. The admission hung between them, fragile and raw. The audience seemed to collectively hold its breath. This was the moment where everything could shift, where the conversation could either spiral further into conflict or find some kind of resolution. But before either of them could speak again, Jimmy looked up at Kelly with an expression she hadn't seen before. Maybe you're right, Jimmy said slowly. Maybe I am threatened. Maybe I did start this conversation because I needed to feel like I was still on top, like my show still mattered in the way it used to. Kelly watched him carefully, not interrupting. But that doesn't excuse what I said, Jimmy continued. And it doesn't make it right. I was dismissive. I was condescending. And I'm sorry. The apology landed in the room like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through the audience. Kelly remained standing, processing his words. But the tension that had been building for the past several minutes hadn't fully dissipated. There was still more that needed to be said, more that needed to be resolved, and both of them knew it. Kelly studied Jimmy's face, searching for sincerity. The apology was there, but she could sense there was something else beneath it. Something unresolved. Thank you for apologizing, Kelly said carefully. But I need to know something. Do you actually believe what you said, or are you just sorry you said it out loud? Jimmy flinched. What's the difference? Everything, Kelly said. One means you regret your words. The other means you regret your thinking. And I need to know which one this is. Jimmy sat back down in his chair, suddenly looking exhausted. I don't know how to answer that. Try, Kelly urged, sitting back down as well, but keeping her posture guarded. I've been doing this job for so long, Jimmy began, speaking more slowly now, more deliberately. And when I started, there were rules. Unwritten rules about what made a show legitimate, what made a host credible. Late night was the pinnacle. It was where you proved yourself. And I worked so hard to get here, to earn this chair, to live up to everyone who came before me. I understand that, Kelly said. But that doesn't answer my question. I'm getting there, Jimmy said. The thing is, those rules are changing. The whole landscape is different now. And maybe part of me does think that what I do is more important, more valid, because that's what I was taught. That's what I believed my entire career. But another part of me knows that's not true anymore. That the world has moved on, and I haven't. The audience was completely absorbed. This level of honesty, this vulnerability, was something no one had expected to see. So, you do think you're better than me, Kelly said. But there was less anger in her voice now, more sadness. I think I want to believe I'm better than you, Jimmy said. Because if I'm not, if we're equals, then what have I been doing all this time? What was the point of all the sacrifice, all the work, if someone can just come along and be just as successful, just as loved, without following the same path I did? Kelly nodded slowly. That's honest, at least. It's also pathetic, Jimmy said with a bitter laugh. Listening to myself say it out loud, I sound like a dinosaur, like someone clinging to a world that doesn't exist anymore. You're not a dinosaur, Kelly said. You're just human. We all want to believe that our struggles meant something, that the path we took was the right one. But Jimmy, the fact that I found a different path doesn't invalidate yours. Doesn't it, though? Jimmy asked. If what you do is just as valuable, just as important, then what made late night special in the first place? What made all of this worth it? The work itself, Kelly said. The connection with the audience, the moments of real conversation, real laughter, real emotion, that's what makes it worth it. Not the time slot, not the tradition, not the hierarchy, just the work. Jimmy was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was barely above a whisper. I don't know if I believe that anymore. The words sent a chill through the studio. Kelly leaned forward. What do you mean? I mean, I've been going through the motions for a while now, Jimmy admitted. Doing the bits, playing the games, interviewing the guests, and somewhere along the way, it stopped feeling meaningful. It started feeling like a job. A job I was good at, sure, but just a job. And then I see you doing your show with so much joy, so much authenticity, and it makes me realize how much I've lost. Jimmy, Kelly said gently. No, let me finish. Jimmy said, holding up a hand. I started this conversation trying to tear you down because seeing your success reminded me of everything I'm not anymore. Everything I used to be when I first started. That excitement, that passion, that genuine love for what I do, you still have that and I don't. And instead of being inspired by that, instead of learning from it, I tried to diminish it. I tried to make you feel as empty as I feel. The confession left the audience stunned. This wasn't just an argument anymore. This was someone having a breakdown in real time on live television. Kelly reached across the desk and put her hand on Jimmy's. You don't have to feel empty, she said softly. You can find that passion again. You can change. Jimmy looked at her hand on his, then up at her face. Can I, or is it too late? It's never too late, Kelly said. I think it might be, Jimmy said. For me, for this show, for all of it. I think maybe I've been holding on to something that doesn't work anymore. Not because the format is bad or because late night is dead, but because I'm not the right person for it anymore. I'm not present. I'm not engaged. I'm just going through the motions and hoping nobody notices. People notice, Kelly said carefully. But that doesn't mean it's over. You can reconnect with why you started. You can find that joy again. Jimmy pulled his hand away and stood up again, walking around the desk to stand at the edge of the stage. He looked out at the audience, really looked at them, maybe for the first time in months. You all came here tonight expecting a fun show, he said to them directly, expecting laughs and music and maybe a stupid game or two. And instead, you got this. You got me falling apart. You got me admitting that I don't know what I'm doing anymore. And I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry I couldn't be what you needed me to be. Jimmy, stop, Kelly said, standing up as well. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do, Jimmy said, turning back to her. Because you were right about everything, about me being threatened, about me hiding behind fake enthusiasm, about me avoiding anything real. You called me out, and instead of getting defensive, I should thank you because you did what nobody else has had the courage to do. You held up a mirror, and I finally saw what I've become. And what's that? Kelly asked quietly. Someone who's not supposed to be here anymore? Jimmy said. The words came out. Steady, resolute. Someone who's taking up space that could go to someone with actual passion, actual drive. Someone like you. The audience started murmuring, sensing where this was going. Kelly's eyes widened. Jimmy, what are you saying? Jimmy turned back to the audience one more time. I'm saying that this has been an incredible journey. Hosting The Tonight Show has been the honor of my lifetime. But tonight made me realize that I've been doing this job on autopilot. And that's not fair to you, to the crew, to the legacy of this show. You deserve someone who's Alan. Not someone who's just going through the motions. Jimmy, don't. Kelly said, alarm in her voice now. Don't make a decision like this in the heat of the moment. This isn't the heat of the moment, Jimmy said calmly. This has been building for a long time. I've just been too scared to admit it, too scared to let go. But you know what? I'm more scared of staying, of waking up another year from now, another 5 years from now, still sitting in this chair, still pretending everything is fine when it's not. He looked directly into the camera. So, I'm announcing tonight, right now, that I'm stepping down as host of The Tonight Show. I don't know when my last episode will be. There are contracts and conversations that need to happen, but this is my intention. This is my truth. I'm done. The studio erupted. Some people gasped. Some people started talking loudly. Some people just sat in shocked silence. Kelly stood frozen, clearly not having expected any of this. Jimmy, you can't just quit on live television, she said desperately. This is insane. Maybe, Jimmy said. And for the first time that night, he actually smiled. A real smile. Not the camera-ready grin he usually wore, but it's also the most honest thing I've done in years. And that's because of you. Because you refused to let me hide, because you demanded more from me. So thank you, Kelly. Truly. Kelly looked like she didn't know whether to hug him or shake him. I didn't come here to end your career. You didn't end it, Jimmy said. You helped me see that it was already over. I was just too stubborn to admit it. And now I can move on. Find something that actually makes me happy. Figure out who I am without this desk, without this spotlight. And if you regret this tomorrow? Kelly asked. Then I'll deal with it tomorrow, Jimmy said. But right now, in this moment, this feels right. This feels true. The producers were undoubtedly scrambling, the network executives probably having heart attacks. But in the studio, there was a strange sense of calm, like watching something inevitable finally happen. Jimmy walked over to Kelly and extended his hand. No hard feelings, he asked. Kelly looked at his hand, then pulled him into a hug instead. No hard feelings, she said. But you better figure out what comes next. Because you're too talented to just disappear. Maybe I need to disappear for a while, Jimmy said, pulling back from the hug. Figure out what I actually want. Not what I think I should want, but what actually makes me happy. And if that's another show? Kelly asked. Maybe even a daytime show. Jimmy laughed. A real laugh. Then I guess I'll have to learn from the best. Kelly smiled sadly. I really didn't mean for any of this to happen. I know, Jimmy said. But maybe it needed to. Maybe we both needed this. You needed to stand up for yourself, and I needed to face the truth. So, in a weird way, this was the right interview at the right time. He turned back to the audience one final time. Thank you all for being here tonight, for witnessing this, and for all the years of support. I don't know what's next, but I know it'll be more honest than what I've been doing, and that's a start. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent. Eventually, a few people started clapping, then more, until the entire studio was on their feet. Not cheering exactly, but acknowledging, respecting the moment. Jimmy waved, that same real smile still on his face. And then he walked off his own stage for the last time, by choice rather than by force. Kelly stood there alone, looking out at the cameras, at the audience, clearly processing everything that had just happened. She had come to promote her show, to have a fun conversation with someone she considered a friend. Instead, she had triggered a chain of events that would change late-night television forever. The show cut to commercial, but everyone watching knew that nothing would ever be quite the same again. So there you have it. The night Kelly Clarkson sat down for what should have been a routine interview and walked away having witnessed the end of an era. What started as a disagreement about talk show formats became a moment of brutal honesty that forced one of television's biggest stars to confront who he had become. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, because we'll be following this story as it develops. And drop a comment below. What do you think happens next for Jimmy Fallon? Will he come back to television, or is this really the end?